Hello, everyone. My name is Sister Mary, star of Evangelization. I'm a missionary here in East Harlem in New York City at St. Paul Parish, and I put together a little presentation as a way to say thank you to all of you who participate in the 40 Hours Project. Thank you for your prayers and for all of the gifts, spiritual gifts that you give us in order to help us to find our vocations and to persevere in our vocations. The little presentation is a tour of many of the places where I first encountered Jesus Christ and to show a little bit of the story of how he drew me closer to himself, to show really how miraculous it was and how great a gift it was, how much it was needed, that there were people praying for me in order that one day I could be a spouse of Christ. So to begin with, this little church here is a Presbyterian church in Calvin, North Dakota, where I was baptized on April 3rd, 1988. So this is the place where the life of grace began in my soul and where I first became a daughter of God. And then this little church is a Methodist church in Center, North Dakota, where I was raised. This church I attended consistently for all of the years of my life up through high school. So as a child in middle school and high school, this is where I came to know who the person of Jesus was. I'm very grateful for the lessons that I learned there, for the beginning of what it means to fear the Lord and to be grateful for his great sacrifice. And there was always some desire in my heart to make a greater return to Jesus for the gifts that he had given me in his sacrifice on the cross. But as a Methodist here in this little church, I didn't always fully understand how it could be that I could live that out, but it became clearer at a different time in my life. I also want to show you this beautiful Catholic church. This church is in Grand Forks, North Dakota. My grandmother, one of my grandmothers, my father's mom, was a very devout Irish Catholic. And so when we would go visit her in Grand Forks at different times, whenever we were there to see her, we would always attend Mass with her. So even as a young Methodist, I had some experience with Mass and obviously without realizing it, came into the presence of Jesus Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. And I always was very appreciative of the time in this church, where I saw the beauty that could be offered in Christian worship. This is the high altar there. And one particular thing in this church that I wanted to point out are the Stations of the Cross. I remember as a little girl being very struck by these images that were hanging on the wall there, showing the greatness of Jesus's sacrifice for me. I remember it stirred in my heart a desire to make a return to him for the beautiful gift that he had given me in giving himself up for me. So that was one of the first places where I encountered the church. But this little chapel here is one I particularly want to show you because I think in this humble, hidden chapel could have been planted the very seeds of the beginning of my vocation through my grandmother's prayers. So to explain, this is in a nursing home called St. Anne's. They have a perpetual adoration chapel where my grandma was very faithful to her weekly hour and then also would cover many other hours. She spent a lot of time in this chapel. And she never said this to me, and I never went there with her. But I've often asked myself if perhaps this isn't the place where my grandmother prayed for me and asked Jesus both for my conversion and for my faithfulness to his great call in my heart. Perhaps this is the chapel where my vocation was born. And I would assume that this little chapel is very similar to many of the places where all of you pray, where you offer your hours in silence in front of Jesus, praying for souls that perhaps you don't even know, like myself, but winning for them grace is to be faithful to what Jesus asks of them. This is the church on the University of North Dakota's campus, the Newman Center, where on April 7th, 2007, I was eventually received into full communion with the Catholic Church, received the sacrament of confirmation and my first Holy Communion, the first time that Jesus himself entered into my body and my soul. So And obviously there's a lot to what Jesus did in my heart to make it possible for me to enter into the church, to recognize that he was there waiting for me. But then after I received the sacraments and came closer to him in this way, then he continued to work in my soul to show that the only way I was ever going to be completely satisfied was if I belonged to him as his bride. So one last church I want to show you is the cathedral, St. Matthew's Cathedral in Washington, D.C., where by the grace of God on September 14th, 2019, I professed my final vows with 7 other sisters from my religious family. So I know that the story doesn't end here with my final vows. In fact, it's just the beginning of a life lived out in conformity with Jesus Christ crucified. But it was a beautiful blessing to be able to profess the vows and to know that all of these different places where Jesus had introduced himself to me and allowed me to know him in a deeper and deeper way each time that he brought it to consummation here in front of the altar at St. Matthew's. So again, this would have only ever been possible if someone was praying for me, my grandmother, but also perhaps all of you, without even knowing it, were winning the graces for my soul here in front of the Blessed Sacrament so that I could become his spouse one day. And so I thank you for that. I beg you to continue to be faithful to this great apostolate. And especially as you pray for more consecrated vocations, pray also for the perseverance of all of us who have already consecrated ourselves, and especially for the perseverance and the increase of many holy vocations to the priesthood. We need many more holy priests, and your prayers are fruitful and powerful in winning them for the sake of the church. So thank you for that. Persevere and know that I also in return will be praying for you, especially asking the Blessed Mother that you continue to grow in your faith and confidence in the goodness of Christ present in the Blessed Sacrament. Thank you again. God bless.